Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Site for Wight, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Saturday the 8th of October 2022. Please forgive the rather husky voice. I do have a sore throat at the moment, but I'm feeling absolutely fine. Also delighted to announce that we have a start date for Kevin, which is Monday the 10th of October. Kevin joins us as the charity manager to help me on a daily basis manage all of the new activities and services that we're offering to everyone. Kevin also replaces Mark as the sensory service manager for Wight Sense, using his background of working within adult social care for most of his working life. I'm also delighted to announce that Susan and Jasmine and Janet are packed and ready for the annual holiday which goes on Monday to Warner's in Yarmouth. All 20 places sold out very quickly, and the members will be enjoying a fun-filled 2 days of activities and evening entertainment next week. I very much hope everybody is staying safe and enjoying the sunshine that's come back to us. Thank you, Lisa, CEO, Site for Wight.
This is Michael reading an article from Ireland Echo. Isle of Wight's Raymond Ray Allen passes away, aged 82. Ryde resident Raymond Allen, who wrote the popular 70s sitcom Some Mothers Do Have 'Em, has sadly died, aged 82. Ray was born on the island in March 1940. He attended Ryde Secondary Modern School. After leaving school, he became a reporter for the Ryde Times at the age of just 16. He later served in the RAF before then returning to Ryde, taking various menial jobs locally. Allen had written around 40 serious plays before he finally found success with Some Mothers Do Have 'Em, which was first broadcast by the BBC in 1973. After one script had been accepted, he was then invited to write 6 further episodes, and 2 further series followed. Some Mothers Do Have 'Em was wildly successful. At the time, before the internet, the whole nation would gather around their television screens to watch the most popular TV shows. The sitcom attracted a regular audience of 17 million, and a Christmas special was seen by 23 million. The series Some Mothers Do Have 'Em features the misadventures of the hapless and seemingly unemployable Frank Spencer, played by Michael Crawford. Ray Allen's personal experiences in various jobs sometimes mirrored the misfortunes of Frank in the television sitcom, and many of the street names mirrored those of streets in Ryde. Before the BBC accepted Ray's script for Some Mothers Do Have 'Em, the would-be scriptwriter had been working in the Regal Cinema in Shanklin as a toilet cleaner. He had initially intended to work there for 6 months, but ended up staying 5 years. Up until his death, Ray was the patron of Shanklin Theatre and the Apollo Theatre in Newport. When initially working for the BBC, Ray was hindered by the fact that he didn't have a telephone in his Haylands home and was obliged to use the public telephone box in the Ryde suburb. Ray recalled his experiences using the public telephone for script writing conferences. There was a local telephone box, and that was right by the bus stop, and every time you had to time your script conferences to be in between the Haven Street bus, it was terrible. You had this big long script. I never had the sense to reverse the charges. I used to have a sock full of coins, and it was a nightmare. Some Mothers Do Have 'Em was Ray Allen's only major success as a scriptwriter. Although he wrote several sketches for numerous comedy legends, including Frankie Howard, Dave Allen, Hale and Pace, Jimmy Cricket, and Little and Large, Ray continued to live in Ryde after his comedy hit, which earned him enough money to afford his own house in the town. Ray died on Sunday the 2nd of October following a short illness. In a statement, his family have said, "It is with great sadness that we announce the passing of our much-loved husband, stepfather and granddad. After a short illness with family and friends by his side, he passed away peacefully on Sunday the 2nd of October 2022. His life's work gave joy and laughter to many millions of people, not just in this country, but all around the world. Raymond has left us all with wonderful memories filled with fun, laughter and love. He will be remembered as a very humble, kind and generous man. His legacy will live on. He will be greatly missed by many."
This is Patrina reading from Island Echo. Family of former fibre resin worker appeal for workmates to come forward following asbestos death. The children of a former factory worker who died from asbestos-related cancer are appealing to his former workmates for help in discovering how he was exposed to the material that claimed his life. Raymond Lewis died 3 months after he was diagnosed with mesothelioma, a cancer of the lining of the lung associated with exposure to asbestos, often decades previously. Following his diagnosis, Raymond of Ryde instructed expert asbestos-related disease lawyers at Irwin Mitchell to investigate his illness and if it could be linked to his work history. However, he died aged 80 before he could see his case concluded. Now following his death, Raymond's children, daughter Claire, 55, and son Philip, 52, are continuing their dad's search for answers in his memory. Raymond joined Fibre Resin in 1962, when it was located at Clarence Road in East Cowes. He worked there until the firm moved to Kingston Road in around 1970. Raymond then worked at the Kingston Road site until 1986, when the business closed down. The firm was best known for the manufacture of the backs of television cabinets and car door panels. Raymond recalled using 6 large camelback ovens which he believed were made up of asbestos sheeting an inch thick inside a metal frame. Once the products had been formed, they would be pushed on trolleys into the oven. Raymond was involved in the production and finishing works and was employed using the ovens for 48 hours a week. Even when he was asked to set up a paint shop, he still worked with the ovens. The paint shop had to be kept clear of dust, and one of Raymond's other tasks was to sweep up the accumulated dust every day. In around 1970, the firm moved to its site on Kingston Road, which involved the dismantling of the ovens, which then had to be reassembled at the new location. Raymond also said he worked with tradesmen to apply further lagging to the ovens, mixing paste in large drums to be applied in various other pieces of equipment. The new lagging included wire netting, which was then coated in plaster. Raymond's children have now joined the legal team in appealing for their dad's past workmates to come forward. They are keen to hear from anyone who worked with Raymond at Fibre Resin Developments, particularly at the Kingston Road site in East Cowes, from 1970 to 1986. Nicola Meyer, the specialist asbestos-related disease lawyer supporting the family, said, "Raymond's death is another reminder of the terrible legacy that asbestos has created. What makes it even more distressing for the family is that Raymond's death came so soon after that of his wife. Nothing can bring Raymond back, but if any of his former workmates have information on the working conditions he faced, the family would be grateful. Any detail could prove vital as Claire and Philip look to honour their dad's memory and to try and look to move on from what has been a traumatic period in their lives the best they can. Ramon's daughter Claire has said, "Dad was such a great man. He worked hard his whole life and even in retirement spent a lot of his time caring for Mum. Losing Mum was terrible and hit us all hard, but when Dad was diagnosed with mesothelioma, it made things so much more difficult. We never imagined it could all happen so fast, or he could be taken from us so quickly. Dad was a practical man, and even though he was so ill in those final months, he made every effort to get to the bottom of his asbestos exposure, and even that has been taken from him. Nothing can bring Mum and Dad back, but we can see that Dad's final wishes to carry out and finish the search for answers that mean so much to him. If anyone who worked with Dad in the past could come forward and help us, it would mean a lot. I'm not sure our lives can ever be the same again, with Mum and Dad gone, but getting the answers Dad wanted is the least we can do for him now and allow him to rest in peace. Anyone with information is asked to contact Nicola Mayer at Irwin Mitchell on 02380 930 702 or email nicola.mayer, M-A-I-E-R, at irwinmitchell.com.
Hello everyone, this is Steve reading a story from Isle of Wight Radio, headlined Energy Bill Scam Warning Issued for Isle of Wight. Action on Fraud says it has received 139 crime reports relating to fake text messages purporting to be from the government. The texts state that the recipient is owed or eligible for an energy bill discount as part of the Energy Bill Support Scheme. The links in the emails lead to genuine-looking websites that are designed to steal your personal and financial information. How to protect yourself. Energy bill discount. £400 off energy bills for households in Great Britain from October 2022. You do not need to apply for the scheme, and you will not be asked for your bank details. Spotted a suspicious text message? Forward it to 7726. That's free of charge. If you forward a text to 7726, your provider can investigate the origin of the text and arrange to block or ban the sender if it's found to be malicious. For more information on how to stay secure online, visit www.cyberaware.gov.uk.
Islanders warned after homeowner targeted by roofing scammer. From Isle of Wight Radio, read by Joyce. Islanders are being warned about rogue traders doing the rounds who are making false claims about urgent repair work that's needed to their home. Isle of Wight Radio has been told that a man in a small grey van with roof ladders knocked on a door in Wootton, stating that the property had loose roof tiles. A flyer was presented with the company name High Line Roofing, with several contact numbers. He then left. The homeowner checked the name, which is associated with a firm in Heathrow, London. He called the company, who confirmed it was not one of their staff and had received previous calls about it, leading them to believe it was a scam. How to report scams. To report a scam text, forward the message to 7726. To report a scam email, forward the message to report@fishing.gov.uk. That's report@fishing, spelled beavers.gov.uk. Scams can also be reported to Which Scam Sharer. If you have lost money to a scam, your first port of call should be to your bank and action fraud. If you think you are in danger, call the police immediately.
This is Michael reading an article from Ireland Echo. Beavers given protected status, but it may not be good news for Ireland farmers. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust is celebrating as beavers are now officially recognised as a native species in England and a European protected species. But it's not good news for farmers who are opposed to beavers being released on the Isle of Wight. The new law, which came into force on the 1st of October, is good news for this extraordinary mammal, which could be introduced to the Isle of Wight by 2024. Beavers are key to creating thriving wetland ecosystems, which are critical for climate adaptation and provide a wealth of benefits for nature and people. The change in legal status will make it an offence to deliberately capture, kill, disturb or injure beavers or damage their breeding sites or resting places without holding the appropriate licence. Izzy Tween, Beaver Recovery Project Officer at Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust, has said, "We are delighted that beavers have been received European Native Species Protected status. This new legislation gives the beavers already thriving in England recognition as native animals, a status they have held in Scotland since 2019, and will bring their level of protection in England into line with those north of the border. While any unwelcome beaver activity can still be managed under Natural England licensing, this protection will help our small and vulnerable population of this industrious ecosystem engineer to establish and create wetlands to help boost biodiversity and deliver ecosystem services for local communities." Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust aspires to release wild beavers on the Isle of Wight as a key part of its vision to support nature's recovery on the island and create a wilder Wight. The Trust launched a public consultation in February 2022, mailing a questionnaire to every home on the island asking residents for their views on a potential release of the aquatic mammals in the Eastern Yarra Valley. A total of 4,883 people responded to the consultation, with 89% stating they feel positively about beavers being released on the Isle of Wight. However, it was back in March of this year that Ireland Echo reported on the concerns of local farmers. In April, a meeting of the National Farmers Union learned of significant damage to low-lying arable land, like that in the Arraton Valley, caused by the burrowing and damming activities of beaver. Damage to public access routes was also highlighted, and concerns were raised about where responsibility and culpability for injury would fall if damage by beavers led to the collapse of footpaths or bridleways on a farmer's land. A further cost someone must take responsibility for. The Trust hopes to submit a licence application, which is needed for any beaver release in the UK, to National England. Currently, though, National England is not accepting licence applications while it works with DEFRA to finalise the National Beaver Strategy after running their own public consultation last year. If the Trust's eventual licence application is successful, it's hoped the first beavers could be released on the island by 2024.
This is Patrina reading an article from Island Echo. Isle of Wight has lowest primary school attainment in the whole of England. Provisional results for the 2021-22 school year, released last month, have revealed that the Isle of Wight has the worst Key Stage 2 results of any local authority in England. Key Stage 2 is years 3 to 6 for children aged 8 to 11, the final years of primary school. The percentage of primary school children meeting the expected standards at Key Stage 2 on the Isle of Wight in reading, writing and maths combined is 47%, 8 points below the national average of 58%. The next lowest local authority is Portsmouth, where 48% of school students meet the expected standards. In other nearby local authorities, 51% of Southampton students meet the Key Stage 2 targets, as do 59% in Hampshire. The figure for the South East as a whole is 58%. The highest attaining area is London, where 65% of pupils hit the target. The number of Key Stage 2 primary school students meeting expectations has fallen since the 2020-19 school year, presumably due to the impact of COVID on school attendance. In 2018-19, 66% of students in the South East achieved the expected standards, 8% more than in 21-22. Nationally, girls outperformed boys, with 63% making the grade, compared with 54% of boys. Boys only had better results than girls in maths. One reason the Isle of Wight primary schools have performed worse than those of any other local authority may be the lack of diversity on the island. 74% of children of Indian ethnicity meet the expected standards, as do 70% of Chinese, over 20% higher than the corresponding Isle of Wight age group. The news of the poor performance of Isle of Wight primary schools comes after the Isle of Wight reported the worst results of any local authority in England in the GCSE and A-level examinations this year, as revealed by Island Echo.
Hello, this is Steve reading a story from Isle of Wight Radio, headlined New Shanklin Toilets set to be located near the cliff lift. The new public toilets on Shanklin Seafront will now be placed in a different location. Plans had been put in place by Shanklin Town Council to place pay-as-you-go toilets by Chine Bluff. They would have replaced the current provision. However, according to Shanklin Mayor Councillor Chris Quirk, the proposed location of the toilets at the Chine was a few inches too close to the main sewage pipe for Southern Water's liking. Despite giving the water company alternatives, Councillor Quirk said it was refusing to budge, so they could not put the toilets where it wanted to. The Town Council has already purchased the toilets from Danfo, and they are ready to be sent over to the island. As an alternative, Shanklin Town Council has now agreed to place the facilities, which will have 2 toilets and 2 exterior cold water showers, by the bottom of the Shanklin Cliff lift. The existing toilets at the SPA site have been closed for a number of years, with Councillor Quirk saying the Town Council had wanted to install public toilets there as well. A structural survey is being completed of the existing Chine Bluff toilets, so the Council can agree on what to do with them. Councillor Quirk said there had been suggestions refurbishment work would be in the hundreds of thousands of pounds, but was also told that that was totally ridiculous. He said the Town Council wanted an expert opinion to find out what needs doing. Questions were asked as to whether the Council could use Section 106 money coming from the SPA site redevelopment to refurbish the Chine Bluff toilets. Developers pay Section 106 money to the Isle of Wight Council, which is then used for community projects in the area. Councillor Quirk said the Town Council would have to decide what they wanted to do reasonably quickly if that was the case, as the planning application for the SPA site was likely to come forward soon, and the Section 106 money can only be used for plans already in the pipeline.
Students from Cowes Enterprise College take part in humanitarian projects in Kenya from On the Wight, read by Joyce. A group of students at Cowes Enterprise College travelled to Kenya to take part in humanitarian projects with the camp's international group. The students took part in weeks of social action work, including building projects at a primary school, animal care for a herd of 113 goats, and completing a PADI open water diving course. Time was found for exploration and relaxation, and students enjoyed time at Diani Beach and even took part in a safari where they spotted elephants, lions and a leopard. The camp's foundation is dedicated to helping volunteers take part in projects that help communities across the world. Cowes Enterprise College is pleased to have worked with camps previously on an expedition to Borneo. Cowes Enterprise College Principal Rachel Kittley said, "This is such a brilliant opportunity for our students to not only play their part in such important humanitarian work, but also to visit Kenya. We are delighted to hear how much students and staff enjoyed the expedition and taking part in new adventures. We are proud to offer a wide range of enrichment opportunities at Cowes Enterprise College and look forward to offering more in the future."
This is Michael reading an article from Island Echo. New road safety campaign launched highlighting fatal 5 dangers. A road safety campaign is raising awareness of some of the main reasons why people are killed or seriously injured on the island's roads. The It's Not Worth the Risk campaign aims to improve driver behaviour through a simple picture-based reminder of the factors present in almost all major and minor collisions. These are inappropriate speeds, in-car distractions such as using a mobile phone while driving, not wearing a seatbelt, drug driving, and following too close, tragically titled The Fatal 5. Building on similar initiative developed by the fire service and police, the campaign features simple safety messages in the form of circular pictogram stickers with an overarching message: "It's not worth the risk." Adding these stickers to council vehicles will give motorists numerous opportunities to see these key road safety messages on every journey at the very time and place they are most relevant on the road. The campaign is being backed by the Isle of Wight Ambulance Service, Island Roads and waste provider Amy, with many of their vehicles displaying the stickers. Lewis Campbell, the council's road safety officer, said, "The majority of motorists drive safely and would not take unnecessary risks which compromise their safety and the safety of others. But there are a small minority who do. Seeing these pictograms will remind all drivers of safer driving behaviour and hopefully changes the driving habits of risk-taking motorists. This campaign aims to raise awareness of contributory factors which are common in road traffic collisions, namely speed, in-car distractions, such as using a mobile phone, lack of seat belts, alcohol or drug use, and keeping a safe following distance. Combined, these factors were present in 41% of all road traffic collision-related casualties within the past 5 years. Councillor Karen Lucioni, Cabinet Member for Community Safety, added, "The pictures are being used to communicate the message that roads are dangerous and care needs to be taken. We want these symbols to give people that little nudge to drive more safely." The nudge theory is widely acknowledged behavioural science concept that subtle, indirect suggestions can influence motives and behaviour change. Thank you to our partners who have applied the branding to their vehicle fleets, enabling a wide reach across the island.
This is Patrina reading an article from Island Echo. Trees outside County Hall to be cut amid fears for public safety. The larger trees outside the home of the Isle of Wight Council are to be chopped down after suffering from decay from the last 4 years, but they will be replaced next year. In recent months, fencing has been erected around the 3 large trees outside the main reception area of County Hall to ensure public safety. The trees on Newport High Street have been identified as decaying since as early as 2018. An Isle of Wight Council spokesperson has now confirmed, following regular inspection, their conditions have continued to decline, so much so they now need to be removed. The easternmost tree, immediately outside reception, has significantly weakened, they said, to the point where the council must take action now to ensure public safety by removing the potential danger, which must be its top priority. The council says the other 2 have also reached the end of their lives. The spokesperson said, "All 3 will be replaced in the spring with young trees of a species more suited to the location and our changing climate." The council will also be installing interpretation boards about the trees and how they can help tackle climate change by reducing carbon emissions. Elsewhere, the authority will be planting 85 tree whips at Sea Close Park, increasing the area covered by the Millennium Wood.
Hello, this is Steve reading a story from Isle of Wight Radio, headlined "Service and Parade will mark 100th anniversary of Newport War Memorial." The Royal British Legion will commemorate the 100th anniversary of Newport's St Thomas's Square War Memorial this weekend. That's Sunday. The Newport and Carisbrooke branch are holding a small parade and service to mark 100 years since its dedication on the 16th of September 1922. Combined with this event is also the 100th anniversary of Cowes Sea Cadets and the 60th anniversary of Ryde Sea Cadets. A small parade will form in St Thomas's Square by Watson Bull and Porter, consisting of the Vectis Corps of Drums Marching Band, members of the 165 Port and Maritime Royal Logistic Corps, who have the Freedom of Newport, along with standard bearers and contingents of Cowes Sea Cadets and Ryde Sea Cadets. They will march to the War Memorial for a short service at 2 p.m, which will include an act of remembrance and a small wreath-laying ceremony. The service will be conducted by Reverend Janet Hallam. In attendance on Sunday afternoon will be HM Vice Lord Lieutenant Brigadier Maurice Sheen and Isle of Wight High Sheriff Mrs Kay Marriott, along with other dignitaries. Following the service, the parade will reform and march away from the memorial, with HM Vice Lord Lieutenant taking a salute.
Southern Water forced to repay £28.3 million to customers after missing pollution targets. From On the Wight, read by Joyce. Southern Water face a financial hit because of missed targets on water treatment works, compliance, pollution incidents and internal sewer flooding. Southern Water, the utility company that supplies to the Isle of Wight, is one of 11 companies who have been told that they must cut tens of millions of pounds from customers' bills for missing pollution targets. Last summer, Southern Water pledged to reduce sewage emissions around the Isle of Wight. However, here on the island, we've seen a summer of sewage outflows. In July, a report from the chair of the Environment Agency revealed that Southern Water had fallen to a 1-star rating and sat at the bottom of the EA's star ratings, meaning their performance was terrible across the board. Ofwat made the announcement on Monday, adding that Southern Water faced a financial hit because of missed targets on water treatment works compliance, pollution incidents and internal sewer flooding across 2021 and 2022. The water company will have to repay £28.3 million to customers. David Black of Ofwat, CEO, said, "When it comes to delivering for their customers, too many water companies are falling short, and we are requiring them to return around £150 million to their customers. We expect companies to improve their performance every year. Where they fail to do so, we will hold them to account. The poorest performers, Southern Water and Thames Water, will have to return almost £80 million to their customers. All water companies need to earn back the trust of customers and the public, and we will continue to challenge the sector to improve."
Good morning, this is Madeline.
And this is Jonathan.
And we're reading the second part of the Talking News. We begin with the society news for this week. Swimming is on Monday at Medina Swimming Pool between 1:15 and 2:15. The cost is just £5 and members have full use of the pool. Our Tuesday yoga sessions at Millbrook House is cancelled this week but will resume next week and all are welcome. The cost is £3 and runs between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. every Tuesday, and refreshments are served afterwards. Coffee and chat once again will be on Wednesday, starting at 10 o'clock. All are very welcome to come along and speak to members and staff. The cost is £1 for coffee and cake. Mix and Mingle is not on this Thursday the 13th, but will resume next week on the 20th.
The Fundraising Committee meet on Thursday at Millbrook House at 10 a.m. If you have any ideas for future events, please do not ever hesitate to pass on your ideas to the office, or why not pop along on Thursday and join the committee. We are always looking for new people and fresh ideas. You should have all received your newsletter now, and so if you fancy joining in with one of new activities, please do not hesitate to contact the office. This week our members, volunteers and friends are off on their mini break to Warner's at Norton Grange. We wish them all a lovely time and hope the sun shines. I'm sure we will hear all about it on their return.
And now we're moving on to some articles from the County Press. Beryl bikes join scooters on island roads. A new bike hire scheme will see them in Cowes, Newport and Ryde, with a plan to extend their reach further in the spring. Operated by Beryl, which is already behind the e-scooters on the island, the bike scheme has also launched in Portsmouth and Southampton. Member of the Solent Transport Joint Committee and Isle of Wight Council's Cabinet lead on transport, Phil Jordan, was in Portsmouth for the official rollout yesterday, that's Thursday. Called Beryl Bikes by Breeze, the scheme offers a mix of e-bikes and pedal bikes for hire. Part of the Solent Future Transport Zone, it is funded by the Department for Transport. A first phase of 200 pedal bikes and 235 e-bikes, as across the Isle of Wight and the Hampshire cities, is expected to increase to more than 1,000 by the spring. Riders hire a bike through the new micro-mobility app, Breeze, developed by Solent Transport. It also allows the hire of e-scooters as long as you are aged over 16 years. The bikes also work with the Beryl app, and users are charged an unlock fee and then by the minute. Councillor Phil Jordan said, "The e-bikes can be used on many routes, roads and cycleways, and more especially used on the Red Squirrel Trail, which will allow riders to enjoy largely traffic-free cycling through the heart of the island's beautiful countryside."
Article headed Voice of the Isle of Wight. Teen sensation Mila wows TV show judges. Isle of Wight teenager Mila Lake, 16, overcame her nerves to step out on the Voice stage on Saturday, October the 1st, performing Beeb Rex's You Can't Stop the Girl for judges Anne-Marie, Sir Tom Jones, Will.i.am and Ollie Murs. Her blind audition won her turns from 3 of the 4 and a place in the next stage of the competition. She told the ITV show she was so nervous she couldn't stop fidgeting and feared she would pull buttons off her sleeves. Watched by her proud parents and older brother and describing herself as shy, Mila said performing gives her a voice. Mila said she wanted to inspire others dealing with anxiety. After her performance, Sir Tom Jones said she had sung wonderfully well and called her angelic, praising her control on the long notes of a difficult song. The former Isle of Wight Festival headliner said, quote, "She's good as a button." Will.i.am, the only judge not to turn for her, said Mila had nailed the challenging parts of the song and called her fearless. Anne-Marie said, "You have a very pure voice and you could hear that you have more to give. The older you get and the more you learn, I feel you could open that up. I could hear emotion and that's what really gets to me." Ollie Murs said, "I can only imagine what you're feeling. I didn't have the confidence that you have at 16 to apply for a show like this." Facebook has been inundated with messages of congratulations for the Isle of Wight Theatre Train member. The group said in a Facebook post, "Mills, we are beyond proud of you. What a beautiful performance from a truly beautiful person. Lost for words, just lots and lots of tears, just wow." One message called her an amazing island talent, while another said she had made the whole island proud. After a glance at her family, waiting at the side of the stage, Mila picked Anne-Marie to take her through to the next step.
Last chance to have say on voting changes. Islanders will soon be given a final chance to comment on plans to change the number of MPs who represent us. The Boundary Commission for England will publish its revised proposals and launch a consultation on them on November the 8th. The consultation will end on December the 5th, and final recommendations will be then submitted to Parliament by July 2023. It is expected any changes will be brought in ahead of the next general election, currently due to take place in 2024. Plans unveiled last year could see a second constituency created and a second MP. In June 2021, a plan to split the island in two from north to south was revealed and a consultation was held between February and April this year, including 32 public hearings across the country. As reported by the county press, there was criticism at the time that the one closest to the Isle of Wight was across the Solent in Portsmouth. However, that did not stop islanders from commenting online about the plans.
Planning blueprint faces further delay by Louise Hill. No decision has been made on the future planning blueprint for the island, despite a 3-hour meeting on Wednesday night. The controversial draft island planning strategy, which would set housing targets for the next 15 years among other policies, was discussed at the Isle of Wight Council full meeting. Sparks flew about pushing through the plan to save the island from unwanted developments, but also airing concerns about using out-of-date data and lowering the housing target for the island. A motion to put the vote out to a 6-week consultation before sending it off for scrutiny and approval by the government's planning inspectorate was lost by 18 votes to 16 following a lengthy debate. A second motion was tabled at the start of the debate by Councillor Chris Jarman, Cabinet Member for Strategic Finance and Transformational Change, to send the IPS back for consideration and recalculate the housing figures using the recently published 2021 census data and not the 2014 figures as in the current IPS. However, time ran out before the second motion could be voted on, so no final decision has been made on the future of the IPS. According to the Isle of Wight Council Constitution, the meeting could only run for 3 hours, and there is no room for it to be extended. The IPS will come back to full council, but it is not yet known when. During the debate, Cowes Labour member, Councillor Richard Quigley, said a vote against the plan would be a vote against all the good things. He cited an increase in the average wage, improved health and education outcomes, and environmental protection, and a plan for a better future. West Wight Tory councillor Peter Spink said councillors were kidding themselves if they thought the IPS would solve the housing crisis.
Will Tour of Britain be here in 2023? The death of Queen Elizabeth II meant much anticipated Isle of Wight finale of the 2022 Tour of Britain was cancelled, along with 2 other legs of Britain's biggest cycling event. The county press asked tour organisers whether the tour will be back in 2023. Although there was no definitive answer, the Tour of Britain said talks would be held with the Isle of Wight Council about possible hosting next year. It is understood the Isle of Wight Council has yet to discuss reapplying for the tour, and this would be done at cabinet level. The Tour of Britain spokesperson said, "Over the coming months we will be working with the local authorities who were due to host stages in the 2022 race to explore opportunities for hosting the race in future, so until that time cannot comment any further." The final leg of the 2022 tour was due to start in Ryde on September the 11th and wind its way around the island before completing a breathtaking finish at the Needles. The 2022 Tour champion was due to be crowned at the Landmark.
Diamond Day for Shanklin Couple by Zach Saunders. Diamond couple June and John Hiscock from Shanklin celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary yesterday, Thursday. Both born on the island, June worked at H. Abel & Sons Jewellers in Shanklin, and John was a local thatcher working with his father Victor. They met through June's late brother Peter at a Christmas party. He was friends with John and later was his best man. The pair were married at St Saviour's Church in Shanklin on October the 6th, 1962, and June still has a county press clipping of the announcement of their wedding. Their wedding reception was held at the Savoy Hotel, and they honeymooned in Bournemouth. John went on to work for the county council, and June ran a small guest house in Shanklin. The couple has enjoyed a long retirement with exotic holidays over the years and have fantastic memories from months spent with friends travelling in the USA. John and June's daughter Rachel said her parents have been amazingly supportive to her and her brother Andrew, and continue to be amazing grandparents and great-grandparents to James, Oliver, Elliot and Jack, something that fills their time and brings them great joy. Now in their 80s, they enjoy meals out, bingo, theatre trips, mini coach breaks and precious time with family. John and June enjoyed a helicopter flight from Sandown Airport, seeing the island from the air as a joint 80th birthday present. To celebrate their diamond wedding anniversary, they headed to Valentino's in Carisbrooke for a romantic meal, and their grandson James took them to the Elvis tribute at Shanklin Theatre. Rachel and her family will be arriving to celebrate with them over the weekend. The secret to their success is a good sense of humour and keeping busy.
Ryland loves our spice bus. Broadcaster Ryland Clark has joked about buying the island-based bus used in the 1997 Spice Girls movie and driving it to Essex. The Union flag emblazoned double-decker is currently parked at Island Harbour near Newport, where it has been used as an Airbnb. Speaking to Radio 2 breakfast show host Vernon Kay, Ryland described himself as a transporter-obsessed geek. He has built an underground station at his house, as well as a bus stop, and revealed he has not only tried to buy an ex-Island Line tube train, but also the bus. He said, "I was trying to buy the Spice Bus, the actual Spice Bus from the film. I paid to have it done up for a museum in this big Spice Girls exhibition. Next thing I know, it has been sold to a company on the Isle of Wight. I'm like, I would have had this for my bus stop." Then, in a recent recording session on the island, Ryland took his chance to try to snap up a retired former train carriage, but also to hunt down the Spice Bus, which featured in the film Spice World. He then discovered the company that runs Island Harbour and owns the bus has now gone into administration.
Lions Club hopes school has roaring success. Ryde Lions Club is sponsoring Bembridge Primary School in the Lions Roar 2022 competition. The contest is run in partnership with education company 8 Billion Ideas. It benefits schools by enhancing life skills that meet all of the personal, social and health education curriculum requirements. There are around 20,000 pupils in over 100 schools taking part this year, supported by Lions clubs from across the British Isles. Ryde Lions President Marcia Couture said, "We are excited to be able to support this youth initiative, to give children and young people the opportunity to think big and create world-changing ideas through the Lions Roar 2022 competition." Ryde Lions supports a range of youth initiatives. Contact them on 0845 833 5789.
Amelie earns place at top ballet school. A young carer from the island, aged just 14 years, is living her dream at a Leicestershire dance school after she raised the funds she needed to take up her place. Earlier this year, Amelie Jones was offered a coveted spot at King's International Ballet Academy, prompting her family to appeal for support. Now the term is underway, and she among those attending lessons, having been able to take up one of the only 5 full-time places in her year group. Just over £5,000 was raised through what Amelie's family called generous donations via a GoFundMe page, a host of charities, and through dog walking and making and selling bunting. Amelie's mum Sarah said, "We would like to extend our huge thanks to everyone who has donated. We took a very excited Amelie up to her new home, where she spent the weekend getting to know her house parents and 4 other New King students. She's settled in really quickly and is already forming strong bonds with friends." Amelie's ballet school fundraising bid continues. Sarah says the family is happy for caring and fiercely driven Amelie, who has been a young carer to her dad. Tom Jones had FND, functional neurological disorder, which meant he had seizures, stroke-like episodes, paralysis, loss of speech and permanent chronic fatigue, and often spent time in hospital. Sarah had to reduce her working hours significantly to look after him. 3 years ago, an undiagnosed heart condition called Wolff-Parkinson's-White was found to be the cause, and Tom had an operation which has helped his physical health to improve. Among Amelie's supporters are the Newport Grammar School charity, the Chloe and Liam Together Forever Trust, the Rotary Clubs of Shanklin, Sandown, Ventnor and Ryde, and Young Carers Isle of Wight. Whitelink is also sponsoring Amelie's travel for 2 years. Sarah said, "We couldn't be more proud."
Shanklin may host road trains again by Louise Hill. The return of a Dotto train in Shanklin has not been ruled out, although caution has been voiced by a top councillor. The iconic vehicle has been absent from the town for more than 10 years now, but with renewed interest in one for ride, Shanklin has been looking at whether it would be a good idea to get one back on its roads. The matter was raised at last week's Shanklin Town Council meeting. However, Shanklin Mayor Councillor Chris Quirk said the town didn't want a Dotto train as they were unreliable. The former train in Sandown, he said, was a Land Rover with bodywork to make it look like a land train. The one in Shanklin made a decent profit. The one in Sandown broke even, he said, and the one in Ryde, which was a Dotto train, made a thumping great loss every year, which is why they got rid of it. What was disappointing was that the Isle of Wight Council insisted on selling all 3 as a job lot. Councillor Quirk said it was something the town council could consider, but he was not sure public authority was the right body to be running a Dotto train. He said, "It is a good private enterprise we can encourage and help, rather than committing ratepayers' money. I don't think this is a good time to put up precepts to buy a Dotto train, but we can think of it." Dotto trains were scrapped on the island in 2010 by the Isle of Wight Council, as the ageing vehicles meant increased maintenance costs. At the time, the authority did look at replacing the trains with either new or refurbished ones, but was looking at a price tag of more than £100,000 per train. It was deemed unviable, and the island's bus operator, Southern Vectis, introduced a new summer route covering as much of the Dotto train routes as possible. Despite interest in bringing back the trains, including bids from local companies, the council sold the 3 vehicles to a businessman in Llandudno. The council said it had accepted the best offer.
Vintage buses to operate on the island this weekend. Vintage buses will be operating in the East Wight at the weekend, courtesy of the Isle of Wight Bus Museum. White Rider is a new look for the traditional autumn running weekend, following the demise of the massively popular Beer and Buses weekend. It will feature vehicles from the Isle of Wight Bus Museum collection, as well as some visiting from the mainland. On Saturday and Sunday, free buses will link various attractions, not only in Ryde but also further afield. This includes the Isle of Wight Steam Railway at Wootton Station. Park and ride facilities will also be available at the Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary in Wroxall. The Wight Rider network is based around the museum in Park Road Ryde, which features a gift shop and tea bar. Services will operate from approximately 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. each day. For more details about Wight Rider, visit www.wightrider.co.uk. The event programme is available at the Isle of Wight Bus Museum or selected outlets.
Road layout changes for interchange. Roadworks for the ongoing Ryde Gateway project will increase in the run-up to Christmas. Since September there has been work to demolish the bus station, which has meant passengers have been boarding buses at alternative locations. From Monday, Island Road says it will shift focus to completing the new access and exit road to Ryde Pier. It will also realign the pedestrian crossing outside the King Lud pub to meet the new access road. Drainage work will be carried out too. It means from Monday for a fortnight the town side of Ryde Esplanade will be used by traffic travelling towards the Dover Street roundabout. It will be closed to westbound traffic between George Street and Union Street, with a diversion via George Street, Cross Street and Union Street. St Thomas's Street will be one way, uphill towards Lynn Street only. Traffic for Ryde Pier will get there via the new link road and will leave via the existing exit. For the following 3 weeks, the Solent side of the Esplanade will be used by traffic travelling towards the Dover Street roundabout as normal. Westbound traffic will turn up George Street and will not be able to go straight on. Entry and exit to Ryde Pier will be via the new access roads. Access to the taxi rank will be maintained and Ryde Travel Shop will be open.
Sandown eyesore being regenerated. A new lease of life is being granted to a Sandown High Street property by an island firm that hopes to kickstart the town's regeneration. The building, which previously housed the Sandown Chef fish and chip shop and Sandown kebab shop on the corner of the High Street and York Road, has caught residents' attention as scaffolding has been erected. The shop has been empty for the last few years and been one of many properties campaigners have called to fix up. But what is happening now? Planning permission was granted in December 2019 for MCM Construction to rejuvenate the empty and increasingly run-down property into a restaurant with 5 two-bed flats above it. Comments were submitted at the time saying the site was important to the Sandown Conservation Area and any development should add some positive visual improvement. There were concerns the designs were not sympathetic to the High Street, as the shop front was too plain and modern, and Isle of Wight Council planning officers recommended the plans be turned down. The Council's Planning Committee, however, unanimously overturned officers' advice and agreed to the plans, installing a condition that materials used on the exterior of the property should be agreed upon as it was in a conservation area. Now an update to the project, which sits opposite the Ocean Hotel and across from the Old Corner Bank, has been given by MCM. Managing Director Brendan McMahon said work started before the pandemic, after struggling to get permission for 7 years. However, it was halted due to the COVID-19, due to other building projects before restarting recently. The rear of the building has been demolished and rebuilt to provide space for 3 of the flats, with the other 2 above the shop at the front of the building. Work restarted in May this year, and Mr McMahon hopes it will be completed by Christmas. The scaffolding erected will be used to re-roof the property, install new windows and paint the external walls. Mr McMahon said, Hopefully this will help to provide a kickstart for other businesses in Sandown and help in the much needed regeneration of the High Street.
Hurst's Round Island cycle clocks up cash. More than £3,000 has been raised for an Isle of Wight charity following W. Hurst & Sons' first annual cycle ride. Several of Hurst's team members use the service of the Isle of Wight Heart Care Club, so colleagues decided to raise funds for the charity by cycling to each of its 6 branches across the island. The cycle ride on August 14th started at the Newport branch at 8 a.m. Riders made their way around the island visiting Ryde, Shanklin, Ventnor, Freshwater and Cowes before returning to Newport. Members of the Isle of Wight Heart Care Club joined Hurst colleagues to complete the ride, and so far the team has raised £3,760. The ride was a great success. We aim to run the event annually, company spokesperson said. Carl Russell organised the event, so a big thank you to him. The team thanked Cycle Wight for providing a bike mechanic, White Crystal for offering bottled waters, Pink Eye Graphics for the logo, customers for their donations and sponsors the Isle of Wight Heart Care Club. Additional funds were raised at Newport Carnival, with an exercise bike set up in each branch for colleagues unable to attend.
Charity expands facilities. A charity based in Totland Bay has opened a separate workshop for its woodworking machinery. West Wight Men in Sheds have also started to turn the old workshop into a separate area for its members to work on projects away from all the machines. They have been raising funds to expand the facilities over the last 12 months, using the online fundraising platform Just Giving. While the campaign was live, West Wight Men in Sheds had an anonymous donation of £4,000. David Waldock, a charity trustee, said, "I would like to say a big thank you to the individual for their donation. It has made a big difference to what we were able to buy and do to complete this build." West Wight Men in Sheds has also been supported with a grant from the White Aid Foundation, as well as assistance from Sydenhams Limited and YBS Insulation, which enabled them to convert the shipping container's interior to a workshop. The new workshop has been dedicated to their late workshop guru, John Baldwin, who died earlier this year after a short battle with pancreatic cancer. The ribbon was cut by John's widow Jenny and was followed by a buffet supported by Pinilla Cake and event services at the shed.
Trio stamped on and kicked man by court reporter. 3 island men who played their part in an unprovoked group attack on a man, causing him to lose consciousness, were told they all face a possible jail term. Adam Sills of Alexandra Road, Ryde, Ashley Chamberlain of Telford Avenue, Portsmouth, formerly of Arthur Moody Drive, Carisbrooke, and Curtis Jenkins of Church Road, Wootton, jointly admitted a charge of affray, using or threatened violence towards others, in Newport on January the 15th. All 3 are aged 23. Chamberlain and Jenkins were ejected from the Fever and Boutique nightclub in Newport at around 1:30 a.m. for being drunk and aggressive. When a friend outside the club got into a fight with Drew Whittaker, they joined in, knocking him to the ground, stamping on him and kicking him, said Les Miller, prosecuting at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court. 2 other men, one of them a member of door staff, tried in vain to intervene and stop the attack. Then Sills, a friend of the attackers, joined in with the assault, aiming kicks at and stamping on Mr. Whittaker. The security man managed to separate the victim from his attackers, but Sills returned, aiming punches at Mr. Whittaker. When the police arrived, the trio were pointed out as the aggressors and their victim was taken to St Mary's Hospital, Newport, having briefly lost consciousness, said Miss Miller. Mr Whittaker did not suffer any permanent injuries. Sills, a painter and decorator, and Chamberlain, a scaffolder, had no previous convictions, while Jenkins, a window fitter, had previous convictions for minor offences, said their solicitor Oscar Vincent. Mr Vincent said they had been out enjoying a friend's birthday, drinking more alcohol than they would normally do, and the incident, for all of them, quote, was a blur, unquote, and they had, quote, barely any recollection, unquote, of what happened. Quote, all three deeply regret what happened, and there's been no repeat of that behaviour since, curbing their drinking, to the point of being teetotal, unquote, Mr Vincent said. Presiding Magistrate Janice Routledge warned them imprisonment was a sentencing option and ordered reports on them. It was a serious offence, a group attack, she said. The three will be sentenced on October 21st.
Shanklin looking blooming great. Green-fingered gardeners came together for Shanklin in Bloom's annual presentation evening recently. The ceremony was held at the Shanklin Royal British Legion, where Councillor David Williams presented garden vouchers, trophies and certificates to the prize winners. The Busy Bee Cups were awarded to the Clifton Guest House and 17A Victoria Avenue. The committee's Choice Cup was awarded to Columbus House. Committee members said they were very pleased with the number of entries this year. They expressed their thanks to the Shanklin Town Council, its clerk Stella Janeway, Shanklin Royal British Legion, Busy Bee and Carpets Direct for their support. Special thanks went to the judges for their continued support, with a huge thank you to Maureen Cagle, who has been at the forefront of Shanklin in Bloom for many years. They said without her hard work it simply would not happen. Thanks also went to everyone who entered the competition.
Big wins for Ireland Men's Hockey Club at Romsey. The men's firsts expected a tough game at Romsey, especially after last season's close game in the Hampshire Trophy, but came out worthy winners. Isle of Wight started strongly and scored early. Elliot Cole winning the ball in the D and allowing Tom Gould to slap it home. With no substitutes, Isle of Wight had to cope with the loss of Gould to injury, but their momentum continued. The midfield linked up well with the island forwards, tearing the Romsey defence apart, and defended well when they needed to, but conceded. The second half started with Joe Arnold playing a ball into the D for Tom Turney to put Isle of Wight back in front. A perfectly weighted pass into the D for Arnold was squared to Adam Payne to slam into an empty net. Romsey managed to pull it back to 3-2 from a short corner. The last 20 minutes of the game became a tense scrap, but after recovering on the sidelines, Gould returned to the pitch to tap in late to make the game safe. Bournemouth 2-3, Isle of Wight ladies 1-0. The ladies first came back from their game at Bournemouth empty-handed. The game started badly, with Bournemouth confidently putting away 2 early goals. The island's defensive line did well to beat off many home attacks. Jamie Payne's effortless individual skill earned the island short corners and they looked threatening, but they came up against a strong defence as the first half ended 2-0. It was end-to-end stuff at the start of the second period, with central midfielders Saffron Hart, Georgia Whittle and Pip Spivey rising to the challenge, starting numerous attacks. But a break in Isle of Wight's formation led to an unmarked player slotting home to make the game safe for Bournemouth. Isle of Wight had a goal ruled out at the end. Isle of Wight men 2, 12, Levant 0. The island man started on the front foot and got an early reward in their hammering of Levant. A ball into the D from Mike Dodds enabled Thomas Young to deflect the ball into goal. Minutes later, dominating play from the island's midfield 4 ended with a pass from Young into the D for Nathan Bruce to calmly put away into the corner. The momentum continued, with Young completing an 8-minute hat-trick with 2 more goals in quick succession. Isle of Wight showed some great hockey, the ball flowing from defence to attack, which led to substitute Johnny Kirby smashing it in from the top of the D, shortly followed by another from the centre of the D. Finn Woodford was not to be left out and added to the tally after some great team play. In the second half, the island stepped it up again, with further goals, braces from Bruce, Young and Kirby. Isle of Wight ladies 2, 5, Petersfield 2 0. In their first game of the season, the ladies' seconds enjoyed a comfortable win over Petersfield. Their game started superbly with a goal from D. Sanchez-Brown after just 3 minutes. The home team had the upper hand throughout the first half, coming close on several occasions. Just before the interval, Megan Bridger slotted another goal home to give Isle of Wight a solid lead. Despite Petersfield's best efforts, they had no answer in the second period, as Isle of Wight added 3 further strikes from Sanchez-Brown, Anya Clark and Amelia Roth-Hickley. And now some Isle of Wight memories. More Newport shops of yesteryear. Which ones do you remember? Taking another look at Newport in its heyday, in one of the pictures, Finley's, the tobacconist next door to shoe shop Freeman Hardy Willis, and then comes Etam for women's fashion clothes shop, followed by Burton's menswear and finally Oliver's shoe shop. The aforementioned names probably will bring back a lot of memories to some islanders. A scene further down the High Street shows part of Week's Bakery and Restaurant Cafe, Dewhurst Butchers, and finally the Bugle Hotel and Bars. Another photo captures the Vine Pub, Frank Witch's Countryman's Traditional Outfitters, and Michael John Hairstylists. Moving on to Pyle Street, an empty shop waits for demolition in order to make way for the biggest, at the time, Newport supermarket. And next door you can see A.J. King, the wet fish shop, and Terry's snack bar. Scarrett's Lane once consisted mainly of butchers' storerooms where meat was stored and prepared for the shops, sausages and pies made, etc. These storage buildings belonged to the likes of butchers Stanley Stevens, Waldreddy's, etc. There were also warehouses belonging to other island traders, and the whole lane was a hive of industry. Notice the old Ford van, which was the workhorse of many traders. Finally comes a picture of the dreaded Coppins Bridge in its early development stage. Forecasters stated that bringing all island traffic to one large junction would eventually prove to be a gridlock disaster. The County Council insisted that they knew better. Who do you think was right?
35 years since the Great Storm. Pier destroyed and roads impassable. Next Friday marks 35 years since the Great Storm of 1987, and it's a night many islanders will never forget, myself included. Millions of pounds worth of damage was caused to homes and businesses as gales of 100 miles an hour ripped through the island. Shanklin Pier was torn apart and the theatre sank to the seabed, while 13 islanders were taken to hospital with shock and minor injuries. In the early hours of Friday, October the 16th, 1987, County Hall in Newport was swamped with calls as people rang to ask for help with fallen trees and damaged buildings. Weather reports the previous night mentioned wind, but indicated heavy rain would be the main feature, not strong winds. I was 12 at the time, and my father was working in the middle of the Solent on a 40-foot pilot boat, then owned by Trinity House. Miraculously, he was unscathed, but a house further along my road had roof damage. My middle school, Somerton at Cowes, lost its fish pond and fish to a fallen tree, and my former primary school in Love Lane had one of its mobile classrooms turned to matchsticks. Such was the power of the wind. Have you got memories of the 1987 storm? I would love to hear them. You can email me, Katie, that's Katey, at iwcpmail.co.uk.
My View by Catherine James. I've had various costumes in my time, from my days as a teenage punk to being a motley glam rocker, clad in flame-pattern lycra with ozone-depleting products, elevating my hair into a scruffy fright wig. I've also worn the dress codes of the employment service, navy trouser suit, white shirt, and Medina Borough Council. The latter was a ghastly, skin-scratching polyester bottle green blazer, issued to me with a synthetic blouse spattered with olive and magenta spots, like a wearable magic eye picture. They used to say that if you squinted at that moire fabric long enough, an image would emerge of the then council leader, Maurice Barton. As a youngster, I had a bright blue Girl Guide uniform, arms emblazoned with embroidered patches, won by completing diverse activities including country dancing, learning basic first aid, or cooking an egg over an open fire. These last two not necessarily mutually exclusive. Above my tunic's patrol insignia, I proudly pinned an enamel badge commemorating 1977's Silver Jubilee. As a guide, not only did I have to be prepared, but I also promised to serve the Queen. I made an effort, but I reckon that the Queen served me considerably more, devoting her life to service right up until her last breath. Though her earthly remains have found their last resting place, even in death, that omnipresent monarch will continue to give us the side-eye on stamps and currency for years to come. I was in London on the day of the Queen's funeral, though, like millions of others. I watched it intermittently on the telly. I saw her arrive at Westminster Abbey, the place of worship where she married her beloved Philip, and which was also the site of her coronation. As her coffin approached, borne on a gun carriage, I realised that there was something missing.
I watched Guardsman Jack Tars, Beefeaters. I saw fellows in bearskins, naval caps, plumes, pipers in tartan kilts, drum majors in scarlet livery, legions of well-buffed helmets. Row upon row of men marching in sync, at 75 steps per minute. Then, as the bearer party carried the draped casket through the gates to the Abbey's entrance, I finally saw them. Two women who, with the Princess Royal, were pretty much the only conspicuous ladies in the cortege. And like the chaps, all three were in military garb. Queen Elizabeth II was the most famous and influential woman on the planet. Yet there she was on her penultimate journey, flanked almost exclusively by men in ceremonial battle dress. I appreciate that HRH was head of the armed forces, but she was also the president of her local women's institute at Sandringham. Elizabeth Windsor became a Girl Guide at the age of 11 and was the patron of the movement until she died. She was the head of the Commonwealth. She held patronages of hospitals, education and training centres, faith, arts and cultural organisations. Who paraded for these people? How was I, a pacifist woman, represented? Elizabeth was my queen too.
And now for some letters. Community Can Make Difference by George Lee of Cowes. Reading the article about the rundown state of parts of Sandown, CP 30th of September 22, gave the impression that dilatory Isle of Wight councillors are unsure how to resolve the problem. It's worth pointing out that even a mere lick of fresh paint can work wonders. A Cowes resident who moved from the mainland a year ago decided to renovate his new home. New double-glazed windows, freshly painted exterior woodwork, new fascia and soffits, new front door and replanted front garden transformed the house's look. Further, it inspired neighbours to re-examine the frontage of their properties. Subsequently, 5 neighbouring houses were repainted, 3 new driveways were built, 1 new fence erected, and 3 new front doors were installed. Even the nearby hotel decided to repaint its whole exterior. These renovations transformed the area to the delight of all local residents. On the other hand, to allow squalor to fester will ensure it gets worse, leaving residents and visitors wishing they were elsewhere.
Why Were Fossils Taken to Trade Show by James Taylor of Newport. During these times of financial strain, with the council making drastic cutbacks and people suffering as a result, I must ask where the money came from to fund 3 museum employees and possibly 2 volunteers at Dinosaur Isle Museum to travel to Munich, Germany for a fossil show. In addition to paying for a courier to transport 7 large boxes containing heavy fossils. This is likely totalling in the thousands, while leaving the museum run by only the administrative staff for around 10 days. Why is this such an issue, do you ask? The Munich show is the largest trade show for fossils and minerals anywhere in Europe. This is an event specifically for the sale and purchase of fossils and minerals. Does this also suggest our museum collection is being sold off? I can't see any reason as to why a local, small-town museum needs to attend such a major event. This is not a tourist venue to promote the museum. It's a place where people put a monetary value on publicly owned objects, which are priceless in terms of their scientific importance. Furthermore, the museum has included holotype dinosaur material for display. Holotypes are the single specimen which the description and name of the new species is based upon. On the island, many dinosaur holotypes are the only example of the animal known to science. Holotype material is not for fossil dealers to drool over, but is there to be researched and holds immense scientific value. Risking such material to damage or loss for a 3-day international fossil show is utterly incomprehensible. It would be more understandable if the material was being loaned to a museum or university for study or part of an exhibition promoting the importance of fossils. Surely the money would have been better spent on maintenance to the museum itself or towards the care of the collection, which has been severely neglected by the council over the last 10 years. Leading to thousands of pounds worth of repairs now needed. As I see it, this is not a publicity event or a tourist venue, but simply a jolly for museum staff at the taxpayers' expense. I'd like to ask for the Isle of Wight Council to explain how was this permitted.
Who Shall I Send My Bill To? By Colin Westland of Apps Heath. Liz Truss did the rounds of local radio stations last week, saying with the prediction energy prices could rise to above 6,000, the government had acted swiftly to ensure that no one should have to pay above an average household cost of $2,500 for gas and electricity. So, if my energy cost for heating and eating exceeds $2,500 next year, who do I send the bill to claim back anything over and above $2,500? Liz Truss, if she's still Prime Minister, Kwasi Kwarteng, if he's still Chancellor of the Exchequer, Bob Seeley, if he's still the island's Conservative MP. Or should I simply wait until the much-heralded trickle-down economics cascading down from the UK's richest 1%, with their generous reduction in income tax from 45% to 40%, has reached my pay packet, along with the reduction in my income tax from 20% to 19%, promised sometime in the future, no doubt as an irresistible bribe just before the next general election.
The Hero from Cathy Houghton of Bembridge. Re your feature on Jim Blake in the County Press of the 30th of September. I was privileged to meet Flight Lieutenant Lucian Ercolani in his later years and heard from his family the story of how his plane, which had been damaged, flew as far south as possible but then had to be ditched into the sea. He and his fellow crew members managed to get in their dinghy and drifted for 3 days and nights before finally seeing land and paddling towards it. It was fascinating, therefore, to read that they were saved by a young Mr. Blake and brought safely into Ventnor. Flight Lieutenant Ercolani and his crew were back flying again within a few weeks.
Gardens sadly not like Kew from Sue Sanders, Essex. We visited Ventnor Botanic Garden this year during the last week in September and were a bit disappointed in the state of the buildings and garden. They were cutting down a lot of trees that looked healthy. The flower beds could have done with a tidy up, and the tropical greenhouse was a bit disappointing. I was hoping it was a smaller Kew Gardens.
Addition to Tollgate Tale by David McKinley from Knighton. I was interested to see that the Castlegate Toll House is still going strong. That was in the County Press of the 30th of September. In the 1950s, my family lived in a house in Watergate Road, now a care home, and the toll house was our potting shed. It had a brick floor and a fireplace and was very cosy. My parents had purchased the house from a member of the Eldridge family, but the original owners had been members of the Mew family, and I imagine that it was they who acquired the toll house when it was decommissioned. And that's all we have time for today, so it's goodbye from Madeline.
And it's goodbye from Jonathan.
The In Touch programme follows, and the scaffolding news follows that. The cost of living crisis, discontinuation of Sonata. Our new Prime Minister, Liz Truss, hasn't yet offered assurances to people receiving disability-related benefits during the current rises in inflation and wider cost of living increases. This has concerned visually impaired grandmother and benefit receiver Kim J. We invited her onto the programme to explain her current situation and her added costs due to her visual impairment. The RNIB only last week handed in a petition to the Department for Work and Pensions about how the cost of living crisis is impacting visually impaired and blind people. Their Director of Insight and Customer Voice, David Oldwinkle, explains the contents of the petition and their future plans to help blind and partially sighted people through the cost of living crisis. The British Wireless for the Blind Fund have announced that they are to be discontinuing their Sonata Internet audio service by the end of October. Kim O'Neill uses the service and explains to us why the device offers such an important and unmatched service, and the Fund's Jenny Cameron tells us the reason behind the discontinuation. The presenter is Peter Wight, producer Beth Hemmings, and the production coordinator Liz Poole.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. Tonight, the sonata that's about to stop playing. We'll be finding out why the loss of one piece of audio equipment is upsetting visually impaired listeners.
There isn't anything quite like it on the market. I struggle with touchscreen technology, so to have a product like this, which is easy to access and all of the services readily available, is by far the best option for blind people.
We'll be finding out more about that and why it's causing concern later in the programme. But first, there's no getting away from the cost of living crisis, now heightened by the cap on energy unit costs dramatically rising last weekend. An added concern for visually impaired people is the growing perception that benefit payments won't keep pace with inflation when the next round of benefit increases is announced. Prime Minister Liz Truss was invited to offer reassurance on this in her interview with Laura Koonsberg last Sunday morning on BBC One.
Boris Johnson promised that he would raise benefit payments in line with inflation. Do you stand by that? Will you?
Well, this is something the Department of Work and Pension Secretary is looking at the moment. So she will make a determination on that, and we will announce that this autumn.
So, as Prime Minister, you won't guarantee this morning that you'll keep Boris Johnson's promise to raise benefits in line with inflation? Because the consequence of that would mean for many people who rely on benefits, most people who claim benefits are working, that they could see a cut in their income. Let's just be clear about what that would mean.
This is something the Department of Work and Pension Secretary will look at.
Nick Robinson tried again this morning on the Today programme.
I reaffirmed that commitment.
Boris Johnson made a promise to uprate benefits in line with inflation.
I reaffirmed that commitment during the leadership election, Nick. Now, we are going to have to make decisions about how we bring back down debt. We have to look at these issues in the round. We have to be fiscally responsible, and I'm absolutely committed to doing that and listening to people and hearing what they've got to say.
Not promising to uprate benefits in line with inflation yet, at least.
Well, Odette Battarel works for Croydon Vision, advising visually impaired people on daily living issues. And she's visually impaired herself. And Odette joins us from a health event in Croydon and from her stall promoting awareness of visual impairment. Odette, I mean, we know everyone's struggling with cost of living issues now, but just explain the kind of things blind and partially sighted people are telling you about the way in which lack of sight can add to your living expenses.
People are worried, as you say, that their benefits won't cover their bills, and they feel kind of disadvantaged because you can't see like the good deals you might get in a supermarket, you know, buy two for the price of one, and all the kind of little savings that you can do every day. People are kind of worried that they'll miss out on that the general public actually, you know, can take advantage of them. There are some schemes, you know, to help people in different, some of them are nationwide, some of them are your own kind of local council. So I would really advise people to try and find out. And unfortunately, a lot of that information is online. So if you find it difficult to navigate websites and browse kind of all the internet and the council websites, are not the most accessible things, unfortunately. I think that's where sight loss charities like Croydon Vision will give you information. So do try and find out. I would say to everybody, go and ask your local sight loss charity or even the RNIB, you know, is there anything that I'm entitled to? I
think you also had a point about the way people cook, that in itself can be more expensive.
Yes, you know, sort of ready-made meals, but actually they're quite expensive. If you can get your cooking skills up, buying a whole chicken and, you know, making soup from the bones and sort of stretching it, freshly cooked meals can actually be much cheaper. You can do stews and with a few carrots, you can make it go a long way.
But of course, those are things that require quite a lot of cooking confidence, which not everybody has. Odette Vatterell, thank you very much indeed. Kim J is a grandmother. She lives in Bolton and she's on a fixed income, and she was already struggling before costs started to spiral. Kim, I mean, what effects are these price rises having on your lifestyle?
Pretty much across the board. I'm on ESA, I'm on PIPs.
We should explain, ESA is an employment allowance that you get, yeah?
It is, the sickness element to it, as I also have, apart from being visually impaired, I have several health conditions. And prior to COVID, prior to the cost of living crisis, my PIPs was used for my disabilities. Now, I rely heavily on technology. So a lot of the money went towards the upkeep of the technology, for simple things like going out and just having a social life. When you're visually impaired, you're very isolated to start off with. So it's important for your mental health to get out. Now, in the last 6 months, my PIPs, which I used to use for the purpose it was designed for, I am now having to pay off my energy bills, my rising cost of my mortgage. It has disappeared. And when you're on benefits, you're already struggling to keep your head above water.
What are you having to give up?
Pretty much sort of everything that I possibly can. It's just everything is going into sort of the mortgage and the bills. My sort of food allowances, it's literally cut to a quarter. Now, I volunteer for RNIB and I teach and demonstrate accessible cooking. And prior to this, I used to do videos sort of once every 2 weeks. Now I'm barely doing them once every couple of months because the cost of food is so much. I'm struggling to make sort of the ends meet to be able to feed myself without sort of helping others to empower them. For instance, I have Careline, which is a telephone that I pay for, £25 a month. And if I have an accident or if I'm ill and I'm on my own, I press the alarm and somebody comes to my aid. But I can't afford it now. And I'm having to consider having to give that up in order just to be able to make ends meet and to be able to put food on the table.
Kim, what are your fears for the future if benefits like your PIPs, your personal independence payments, don't keep pace with inflation?
Frankly, I don't even think sort of keeping pace with inflation is going to help at this rate. There is a massive difference. I mean, my overdraft is now as big as the government's borrowing. It's getting higher and higher. And I lie awake at night and sort of all that goes through my head is, you know, there's another mortgage increase coming. How am I going to pay for that?
Kim, do stay with us. I mean, you've painted a very vivid picture of what you're going through. Listening to that is David Aldwinkle, who's Director of Insight and Customer Voice at the RNIB. David, you've presented not you personally, but the RNIB has presented a petition to the Department for Work and Pensions about these issue. What are you asking for exactly?
There's three key things we've called for, and the first one is that benefit rates as a matter of urgency go up by at least inflation. The second is that the changes that have been made to the Warm Homes Scheme, which have the effect of excluding a number of blind and partially sighted people because of the changes in the rules, are reversed so that all blind and partially sighted people can access that help with their energy bills. And the third one is an extension to the blind person's tax allowance, which would increase the amount of money that blind people can keep from their income, but also that allowance is extended to people who are registered partially sighted. I think the important thing to say, Peter, is that tracking this really, really closely and hard. We are intending to be increasingly active and vocal and visible in this space with the government and other organisations in the coming weeks and months.
Well, we put some of your points to the Department for Work and Pensions. They told us,
we're supporting 6 million disabled people, including those with visual impairments, with an extra £150 payment, including £650 in direct cost of living payments. We've also confirmed £400 for all households to help with energy bills. The Secretary of State commences her statutory annual review of benefits and state pensions in the autumn, using the most recent prices and earning indices.
David, what's your reaction to that?
First of all, of course, the help that's been provided is welcome. But as Kim and Odette have demonstrated, it's just simply not enough. It doesn't cover the increases we've heard in the news and rumours and discussions, as your clip showed, Peter, that the government are thinking of increasing, not by inflation, but by the rate of earnings. We've done a very rough calculation, and this is very rough, but our estimate is that will effectively be a £30 a month cut on average to blind and partially sighted people's benefits, which completely wipes out the help that they're saying they're putting in. Again, the universal credit, £650 is welcome, but if that's wiped out by the reduction in the amount of the increase, if I can say it like that, then it's worthless. But also, there's a lot of people who are on benefits who are actually working amongst blind and partially sighted people, and that's one of the messages we've heard recently, is not to forget that people are working, but they're also finding it really hard to make ends meet.
Can I just ask you quickly, what is the RNIB itself doing practically to help visually impaired people who might find themselves struggling financially?
So we obviously have our helpline and information about maximising your benefits. We are seeing that nearly all of the majority of the calls coming through to the helpline now are connected to finance and people trying to find ways of managing their situation. Further, we are working across the sector, post-sight loss and disability, with other organisations to unify our voice to government to make that stronger. There's work we're trying to do with retailers and energy suppliers, which you're talking to the points you're raising with Odette and Kim, where we're trying to make it much easier for blind and partially sighted people to find those bargains, to get extra help that could be the difference between some people eating and not eating.
Just want to quickly go back before we have to end to Kim. Does anything you've heard reassure you at all, Kim?
No, unfortunately not. They are kind of saying the right things, but at the same time, Liz Truss is more or less saying that benefits aren't going to go up at the same rate as inflation. I would like her to be able to take the money that I have and the bills that I have and work out a budget and see how she manages, because she wouldn't be able to do it.
Maybe we'll invite her on, see if she'll take up the challenge. Kim J, thank you very much indeed. And also David Aldwinkle from the RNIB and Odette Batterell. Thank you all very much indeed. Historically, the British Wireless for the Blind Fund did what it said on the tin, provided blind people with radios. But for many years now, they've widened their remit to take in major developments in technology. Amongst its services, Sonata, a one-stop shop which enables people to access online audio material without needing to grapple with all the complexities of the internet. You just need a Wi-Fi connection.
Hi, and welcome to the 23rd of September 2022 edition of Melbourne Talking News.
The effect of the bill will be to abolish trial by jury in at least half the cases that currently come before the courts, and will, to a significant extent, abolish the presumption of innocence.
Hello, I'm Greg Foote, and welcome to the show that investigates your suggested wonder products. Today's topics start with a sports recovery double bill, compression leggings and bath salts.
So, just a few examples of the things you can hear on the Sonata, talking newspapers, radio stations, audio books and podcasts. But now the fund has announced that the Sonata service will no longer be available from the end of this month, to the considerable disappointment of users like Kim O'Neill. Kim, just explain why you're so upset about this.
Well, I've been a Sonata user for several years now, and I just thought it was such a wonderful one-stop shop place where all of the services you've just listed were available. There isn't really one provider that will provide all of these services for blind and partially sighted people.
To be fair, the fund did announce this earlier this year. Hasn't that given you time perhaps to look for alternatives? Well,
The fund gave us a message in February, so that would have been plenty of time if we had known the details. Basically what we were told was that Sonata was stopping in October and they were looking forward to discussing further developments with us as the months went on. So that gave us the impression that we should hang on, because buying new kit from other providers would be costly, and we were left with the impression that another service would be on the way. Then we received another message in August saying that the service was still ending in October, and there was only an app to replace Sonata, and that was basically the service we would have to move over to.
And presumably, just before I bring in the fund, I mean, part of the point is that for quite a lot of visually impaired people, getting online is tricky and, you know, technologically a bit messy compared to this, which is very simple.
Absolutely. I mean, I struggle with touchscreen technology, so to have a product like this, which is easy to access and all of the services readily available, is by far the best option for blind people.
Let me bring in Jenny Cameron, who speaks for the fund. I mean, why does the Sonata have to stop, given that you can see how very useful it is to people like Kim?
Yeah, I mean, the Sonata service is obviously, it's made a huge impact on people's lives over the time that it's been running. And we know that. We've spoken to people who have said it's a lifeline. The problem is the technology that underpins this device is now about 12 years old. And that is a lifetime in technological terms. And really, it's come down to viability. You know, this technology in 2022, it's simply not viable. We don't have the parts to fix these machines as time goes on. They're essentially giving up the ghost. It's heartbreaking when we hear from people who say, we're going to be left without anything here. And over the years, as we've kind of been exploring and scoping this and looking to future-proof our service, we've been exploring every possible opportunity, and it just comes down to the fact that the nuts and bolts of these machines, they're simply not affordable in 2022, and it's a like-for-like replacement just simply isn't viable.
Can I ask you, what about Kim's point that although you told people that this was going to happen, she feels she couldn't really make a decision because of perhaps a lack of clarity about it, about what alternatives there might be, what other equipment she might invest in, and she didn't want to invest in something if you were going to come up with an answer, because this stuff's expensive, isn't it?
It's expensive, and it leaves people in a difficult position. You know, we've tried to speak to as many people as possible to kind of talk to them about what kinds of alternatives are available. And obviously we've mentioned the mobile phone apps, and there are also other things on the market like Alexas. I know that there are challenges with some of these technologies, but what we see British Wireless for the Blind Fund's role as is finding a way to navigate that journey with people. So I'm sorry if Kim feels she didn't have that chance to have that in-depth discussion, but I hope that that's something that we can continue to do now. And I know that's something we've done now with the majority of our Sonata users.
Can I ask Kim, what are you planning to do?
I have invested in a mobile phone. That has meant paying another £27 a month for a phone contract, which I otherwise didn't need.
And this is a smartphone, not just a bog standard mobile phone. You need a smartphone really to do this.
Yes. As far as radio stations go, the phone really only copes with UK stations. It's not too good for global stations. So I have invested in a mainstream internet radio as well.
Can I ask you how much that's all going to cost you?
That was around £200.
Right, we will have to leave it there, but we'd like to know what other people think about this. It's raised a lot of issues that we will stay with on the programme. Kim O'Neill, Jenny Cameron, thank you both very much. And that's it for today. As always, we welcome your comments on anything you've heard on tonight's programme, whether about the loss of Sonata or indeed how you're dealing with the cost of living. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk. You can leave your voice messages on 0161 836 1338, or you can go to our website bbc.co.uk/in touch. From me, Peter Wight, producer Beth Hemmings and studio managers Amy Brennan and Simon Highfield, goodbye.
Scaffolding and Skips News, week commencing 10th of October 2022. Newport area, Mill House, Upper Shides / Blackwater Road, 8 St James Street, 27 Holyrood Street, 15 High Street, 35 Upper St James Street, 2920A High Street, the George Inn, 92 St James's Street, Capital Jewellers, 24 St James Square. Newport Skips, Wheatsheaf Hotel, Pyle Street. Ryde area, Jack's 75 Union Street, 86 to 87 High Street, 14A Cross Street, 31 Castle Street. Ryde Skips, The Cottage, Upper Green Road, St Helens, 3 Nelson Street.
And in the Cowes area, Pierview, 25 High Street. In East Cowes, 30 to 34 Castle Street. In the Sandown area, the Pointer Inn, High Street, Newchurch, 59 High Street, 29 Beachfield Road, and Melville Street. In the Shanklin area, Shanklin Conservative Club, Cross Street, and in Shanklin, Skips at 12 Clarence Road. In the Ventnor area, the Spiritual Church, 8 Victoria Street, and 12 Castle Cliff, Castle Road.